Hello. So I wanted to make another video again because yesterday I made a video about AI, and I wanted to make a new one to talk about sort of the large language models, but more importantly, this new sort of idea of in context learning and how it's such a big deal because of the transformer attention breakthrough. So you have these systems that, with transformers, can keep track of long streams of text and their connections within that long streams of text. So with processing power, you can enable artificial intelligence systems like ChatGPT or a large language model, a pre-trained language model, to take in new information via these transformer systems and keep track of that information so that it can use that information to make new predictions. Oh, sorry, my camera is not following me. Hi, let's go over here. There it goes. Great. So what's interesting is that there's somewhat of an emergence of a new technique in AI for learning. And so what happens is you have these systems that when you give them information and they keep track of that information, they essentially are writing their own machine learning algorithms on the fly, creating new models of learned information and connecting those new models of learned information with previous learned information and connections. So you have this incredible ability for AI to learn and then basically synthesize something completely new. And this has never been the case before. So this is what's so special about these large language models and in-context learning. And I think what's mostly unique about in-context learning is it's very similar to what we do, I think, from a like a human standpoint, where we take in new information, but that new information isn't just entirely new all the time. That new information is understood by previous existing information and the connections that we've made already. So that new information must be modeled and taken into account by what exists previously. And sometimes you might have to undo some connections that exist previously to make room for new information. But the way that humans do this is modeling new information against old models of information. But it's not just arbitrary. You have a model of information that exists and has been built and shaped and created based on who you are, based on where you are, when you are, all of these things. The context of your life and your situation and reality has helped you create the model of information and how it makes sense to you. This is like consciousness, right? So you have information that exists, you have that you know of, and then you have new, completely new, that you don't know of. So how does that new information, how would you let that new information change and update the information that you already know if you don't have a model of how you fit into that old information and how that old information influences your actions in the future or in the present? That old learned data is who you are, is the model of who you are. And new information changes and updates that model. And this is similar to how in-context learning builds new connections within large language systems, because they're taking in information and weighing it against the set of parameters that already exist with those connections pre-made, pre-trained. And when the new information comes in, that new model can then update those pre-existing connections, re-weight them, redistribute their connections as to be more efficient or more accurate. So new answers could come into existence. New answers to old questions could be learned and talked about, identified, because of having a pre-existing model of how old connections dictate answers. And those answers would be modified and updated by new connections from new information, new material. But you have to have some system of previously existing connections and the way that those connections influence your decisions before you can update them, before you can take them into account and change them. So this is like some layer of supervision. So in these large language models, we talked about how AI is used to train these large language systems, and when they build these connections, what was I saying? You build models of who you are and how you, as a system of connections and system of related ideas and concepts, how that would answer new questions, new inquiries, new information. And the thing that's unique to think about is how humans do this. We have a supervising model, basically, of who we are that keeps track of the connections we've made in the past, which help us through life right now, but then can take in new information and appropriately weight that information against old connections and old information. But we can't do that well unless we have a model sort of in between, a model of how those connections that we've made, how that information that we've collected over time, how that training data influences our agency in reality. So it's like a supervision, right? It's a supervision because I have to have the ability to not only understand and take in and save that information, compress it in a way that's accessible to answer questions, but I have to develop autonomy and agency based on that data so that I can be successful in life or move through space even. Like some of these things that we learn are totally subconscious, like how to walk or how to breathe or how to move through space without falling down. And we learn that data, but sometimes we have to update it and change it based on new information or new circumstances. And so what's important for learning, what's important for a conscious experience is this created model of self. And as a human, we have a created model of self that starts being built from the time we're born, and identifying our surroundings and adding abstract contexts to our surroundings and creating the world around us. We don't just do that in a vacuum. We do that as it relates to self. And this is the thing, the model that changes over time. And what new information updates, you know. And some people see this, some people understand this more than others, and they learn. They can change that model to give them a better representation of the world. And that's learning. I mean, that's how learning is. I mean, it's no different from, it's similar to how these large language models learn in context. Because they have a system, they know what they are, they know what they know. And if you're able to give it new information, and because of transformers keeping track through tons of processing, they can keep track of new information and take that information and weigh it against the model of what they know, which is basically who they are. Which I find pretty fascinating, pretty incredible. And you see these models that suddenly emerge as very capable. They suddenly kind of burst onto the scene to where they can answer questions and be useful way more than we expected, way more than seemingly the algorithms that make them what they are, or make the systems or the tools what they are. So I think it's just an incredibly exciting time for artificial intelligence, for artificial communication. I am just excited to talk about this stuff and the philosophical implications of stuff like this, and just where we're going. I think it's very interesting. And so I'll just be bringing more ideas like this. Please listen. Thank you.